The first striking paradox of this beautiful mind is a secret they rarely admit out loud. Deep within the sanctuary of their own thoughts, they can sometimes develop a quiet sense of superiority over others. This is not born of malice or arrogance, but rather from a lifelong wound of feeling profoundly misunderstood. When you spend your childhood and adolescence feeling like an alien, questioning if something is fundamentally broken within you, discovering the truth about your unique nature can be an overwhelming revelation. When they finally find the vocabulary to understand their own rare psychological framework, the pendulum can swing wildly in the opposite direction. They realize that their empathy is profound, their insights are eerily accurate, and their ability to read the unspoken truths of the human heart is virtually unmatched. In a world that often celebrates the superficial, they may unconsciously begin to look down upon what they perceive as the ordinary masses. They might build a silent fortress of intellectual and emotional snobbery, viewing themselves as the ultimate empaths and the solitary keepers of universal truths. It is a defense mechanism, a towering wall of glass built to protect a deeply fragile core that still fears rejection. Yet, this towering fortress comes with a profound danger. When they retreat too deeply into the labyrinth of their own minds, they can become terrifyingly disconnected from physical reality. They possess a mental mechanism that constantly searches for underlying patterns, weaving complex theories about the future, the universe, and human destiny. When they lose their emotional anchor to the people around them, they fall into a paralyzing mental loop. They lock themselves inside an endless echo chamber of analysis. The beautiful, chaotic, tangible world outside their window simply fades away. They might forget to eat, forget to sleep, and become entirely oblivious to the physical environment. The grounding forces of life, the simple joy of a hot cup of tea, the feeling of sunlight on the skin, the tangible facts of the present moment, are completely discarded in favor of abstract, sweeping visions. In this isolated state, they are trapped in a magnificent cage of their own brilliant making, unable to take a single step forward in the real world because their mind is thousands of miles away in an imagined future. Ironically, when they do step out of their mental fortress and interact with the physical world, they often swing into another exhausting extreme. They become relentless people pleasers. Despite their vast inner independence, their emotional radar is permanently locked onto the feelings of everyone in the room. They crave harmony like a starving person craves bread. The very idea of conflict, of raised voices or disappointed eyes, feels like a physical assault on their nervous system, because they are driven by a deeply ingrained, almost holy mission to heal and uplift others. They find it agonizingly difficult to say the word no. They will bend until they break, sacrificing their own time, energy, and mental peace just to ensure that a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger feels comfortable. Setting firm boundaries feels like an act of cruelty to them. As a result, they frequently find themselves drained, burned out, and silently carrying the heavy emotional baggage of a dozen different people. They allow their own voices to be drowned out in the pursuit of keeping the peace, often becoming a safe haven for others while having absolutely no refuge for themselves. This constant oscillation between the grand vision and the disappointing reality often drops them into a deep well of inertia. Before they take a single step toward a dream, a career change, or a new relationship, they feel compelled to map out every possible consequence until the end of time. They are obsessed with patterns, cosmic timing, and finding the one perfect path. They will sit in absolute stillness, analyzing a dozen different perspectives, weighing the long-term implications of a choice that might not happen for another 10 years. While this profound foresight can prevent many mistakes, it is also a massive roadblock to their own living. They become victims of analysis paralysis. They believe that unless the conditions are absolutely flawless, unless the stars are perfectly aligned and the plan is completely devoid of error, they cannot move. Tragically, in their quest to engineer the perfect beginning, countless beautiful opportunities slip through their fingers, leaving them standing on the platform long after the train of life has departed. But what happens when the pressure of this perfectly curated life becomes too heavy to bear? When the stress reaches a boiling point, this normally composed, highly disciplined soul will suddenly shatter into a state of reckless, unrecognizable hedonism. It is a terrifying shift for those who know them. The mind that usually plans decades ahead suddenly violently rejects the future and desperately crashes into the raw, unfiltered sensations of the immediate present. In the grip of severe stress, they may seek intense, self-destructive pleasures just to numb the deafening noise in their heads. They might binge eat in the middle of the night, drink excessively, or recklessly chase after physical thrills that contradict everything they normally stand for. It is the soul screaming for a release from the prison of perfection. Fortunately, many learn to channel this explosive physical energy into more constructive releases. You might find them frantically scrubbing their house from top to bottom at 2 a.m, running miles until their lungs burn, or drowning out their own thoughts with deafening, heavy music. Behind this fierce determination, however, a heartbreaking vulnerability hides in the shadows of their heart. In their quietest, darkest moments, they are often haunted by the agonizing belief that everybody secretly hates them. Because their lives are defined by feeling misunderstood, trying to explain the vivid, complex imagery of their souls to others often results in blank stares, confused shrugs, or polite nods. Instead of realizing that they are simply speaking a different emotional language, they internalize these reactions as a personal failure. They become their own most ruthless critics. They will replay a simple conversation 50 times in their head, convinced they said something terribly wrong or offensive. This intense self-scrutiny leads to a tragic paranoia. They genuinely begin to believe that there is something mentally flawed within them, a dark stain that makes them fundamentally unlovable. Out of fear, they lock their beautiful, rich inner world away in a vault, throwing away the key, terrified that if anyone truly saw them for who they are, they would be abandoned completely. This deep-seated fear of being unlovable drives them toward another exhausting habit. They become unyielding perfectionists, not just in their work, but in their very souls. When they envision a project, a relationship, or even their own character development, they see it in high definition, flawless, nuanced, and impossibly beautiful. They are romantic visionaries held hostage by their own idealistic standards, because the reality of this messy, imperfect world can never match the brilliant clarity of the visions in their heads. They live in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. They believe their work can always be sharper, their love can always be purer, and they themselves must constantly grow, evolve, and be better. While the desire for personal growth is a noble and beautiful pursuit, this endless chase often deprives them of the simple peace of being enough. They refuse to rest. They deny themselves the grace of celebrating their achievements, always looking past the beautiful mountain they just climbed, only to fixate anxiously on the next terrifying peak. Ultimately, this lifelong quest for profound connection, mixed with their bottomless empathy, leads them into the most dangerous snare of all, the trap of codependency. Because they are natural, radiant givers, their hearts act like emotional sponges, indiscriminately soaking up the grief, the anger, and the joy of everyone they love. They do not just sympathize with another person's pain, they metabolize it. They feel physically responsible for keeping their loved ones in a constant state of happiness and harmony. In relationships, the boundary between where they end and their partner begins completely dissolves. They will silently endure toxic behaviors, make endless excuses for the people they love, and completely erase their own needs and desires to keep the fragile peace. They lose their own identity in the process of trying to heal someone else's wounds, pouring their own life force into empty vessels until they are nothing but a hollow shell themselves. But to understand these hidden habits is not to view them as a tragic curse. It is the beginning of a profound awakening. If you recognize yourself in these reflections, know that your deep, agonizing sensitivity is not a mental flaw. It is a rare and breathtaking gift. The world is often a loud, harsh, and superficial place, but it desperately needs the quiet lighthouse of your intuition. Your tendency to absorb pain, your stubborn visions of a better world, and your relentless pursuit of the ideal are the very forces that bring healing to a broken society. The journey is not about changing who you are, but learning the gentle art of grace. It is about understanding that you are allowed to put down the heavy burdens of the world, even if just for a moment, to breathe, to rest, and to simply exist without having to fix anything. Learning to set boundaries is the ultimate act of self-love for this beautiful mind. It is the realization that saying no to others is saying a vibrant, resounding yes to your own soul. You do not have to be the eternal savior. You do not have to be the flawless perfectionist. Your worth is not determined by how much you can endure, nor by how much harmony you can artificially create in a chaotic world. When you finally allow yourself the grace to be wonderfully, messily human, when you forgive yourself for the inertia and the times you sought comfort in the storm, your true brilliance shines. You step out of the shadows not as a misunderstood alien, but as a grounded, powerful advocate for truth and compassion, capable of experiencing deep joy in the simple, present moments of life. May you find the courage to embrace the vast, quiet oceans of your mind. May you walk through this noisy world with the quiet confidence of knowing that your rare spirit is exactly what this era needs. Protect your energy, cherish your profound insights, and remember that even the most dedicated lighthouse keeper must sometimes turn inward to tend to their own inner flame. You are seen, you are profoundly understood, and your journey, with all its beautiful complexities and contradictions, is a masterpiece in its own right. May you continue to walk in peace, grace, and an abundance of warmth, finding sanctuary not just in your dreams of the future, but in the soft, beautiful reality of here and now.